All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Verdict of the Ancient Kings, episode 37. Winter is dropping, and alongside me once again is going to be Nico. Nico, how are you doing today?
I'm alive. I'm kicking. It's
Y-
been a long day.
Yeah, I can say the same thing for me. This past week has been really, really tiring, really difficult. And then, the time change, everyone's like, yeah, you get an extra hour of sleep. And I'm like, I have two girls, eight
Yeah,
and
no
four or
kids.
7 and 4 kids. And they don't understand that whole entire time change, go to bed earlier. And yeah, it doesn't work out. And it just causes nightmares for all the parents out there in the
Yeah.
world. I'm still fighting a bit of a cold from this past week. So, yeah. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm not sick, so yeah, you got the cold on me, but basically the same thing. The time change is a little difficult. We've adjusted our kids' schedule just basically to ignore the time change.
Hmm.
So that's actually worked out okay. But with it, they wake up earlier, so that's not fun.
Yeah. There was a lot released in the past 2 weeks. We won't be able to hit up everything since we just don't want to do another hour-long show. It really feels like the expansion is going to be coming upon us really, really soon, dead of winter. I would be surprised if it was like approaching Thanksgiving. I think it's going to be really, really soon. But today they actually, dropped something on us, and people have been asking and talking about, are there going to be any sort of new resources? And there's been quite the mixed reaction based upon what is the drop cycle of all the resources. Essentially, all of the resources, they are not slow shards. You gain a threshold, but you don't gain a charge. What's your take on it?
Um, I don't know. The not getting a charge thing is a little frustrating, I would say, about the resources. I wish that you would get this bonus action that they create and the charge and the resource. But I think they're being very mindful of not overcommitting to the power level of resources outside of the common and uncommon space. So
Hmm.
they want to they want to make sure that the power level is not such that people feel forced to play them. And I think that's a wise decision. Outside of the wells, I think the wells are probably the strongest out of all of the resources we've seen.
Hmm.
So outside of those wells, I would say that the rares that they've made have not required people to kind of go out of their way to play them.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the wells were pretty much an automatic guarantee. If you were playing those two shards, you just naturally threw in four of those wells, and you hoped that you didn't get two or three of them in your opening hand. It was almost a sort of
Yeah.
given. With these new resources here, if you guys haven't visited the website or haven't, this is the first you're hearing about the drops. Essentially, each of these resources give you excuse me, a one cost action as you play them instead of a charge. And this one cost action has a generally positive effect. The drop of Ichor, drop of Feral Fuel, Whimsy, Chaos, Wax, they all do something that is thematically in this block part of that specific resource's color. Drop of Feral Fuel looks a little bit strange just because it only gives a gladiator troop an additional gladiator 2, so it's not something that you can just throw in a simple ruby deck. But then that's generally true for all of the resources where it's not an automatic decision. Maybe drop of Ichor, but it's not an
Yeah.
automatic decision where, you know what, this rare resources is always going to be better in my deck than the common one, so I'm going to throw it in. And I like that tension. I like that, that decision making process. Here's a new tool that you can use, but you don't necessarily have to use it.
Yeah, and some of these, like you're saying, are better than others. I would say out of all of them, the one I'm least excited about is the drop of Whimsy, just because we have a similar effect in other cards. Like
Hmm.
we have Kismet's Curio even, which is also a resource that can give us a transformation effect. But it could also be very powerful. I think out of the most powerful of this one is adding a Deathcry trigger to a troop, which is extremely powerful and synergistic. And then the Illuminate one is pretty much hands down like never bad. You're always going to get some value out of it.
Yeah.
The Gladiator one could be made very useful through champion synergy as well. There's both the wild champion that gives Gladiator 1 permanently, and then there's Torque that gives Gladiator 1 to all of your troops temporarily that you can use to synergize with the drop of feral fuel. And adding 2 attack to a troop is not bad. But yeah, it's really hard to say, like, are these better than other resources? For example, we had Quash Ridge Rubble in the past that gave a Orc Rage one, so I mean that was pretty nice. Drop a Chaos, like, are you actually going to play that in your Terra Mill deck over a basic shard that gives you a charge when you also need to use Nin's charge power to help you in the Frostring Arena or something, so it's like, do I sacrifice the charge gain to play to create an action and play it? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it fits into constructed, and I think they'll be just fine for limited, but it's a little off-putting to not get the charge with the shard.
Yeah, it's a little bit of attention. A drop of wax, as you said, it's obviously going to be better 9 times out of the 10 just because you normally need 4 charges to be able to illuminate 1 anyways. So
yeah.
A drop of wax is immediately better than so many others. Drop of Whimsy, like, as I'm looking at the card now and knowing like cards like Changeling Cuties that is coming up, that's going to be released as well, being able to get that transform, and this is a permanent transform.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
It's a permanent transform. So, perhaps your Drop of Whimsy turns into draw an additional card, right? So if for some reason we see Puff actually make its way into the tier 1 category of cards with the other cards that are released, that could be interesting as well. So what I like is there are other building blocks out there that we can use.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, but just to your example though, like not being able to use Puff's charge power until turn 5 or 6, if you're playing a few of these shards, could be a detriment to the deck. So it's a trade-off. Like, yes, you could have the Whimsy that's going to give you the transformation ability prior to turn 4 or 5 with Puff, but does that mean that it's better than having that Puff transformation consistently on turn 4?
Yeah, and like I said, it's the fact that you have to have the discussion is generally good enough for me. Like, is it always going to be better? And what I like about good card games and good games in general is there's never a straightforward answer. The answer should always be, it depends. Are you trying to do A? Are you trying to do B? Are you trying to take a little bit of a gambit, a little bit of a risk? If it's always going to be worse, then you're never going to include it. And if it's always going to be better, you're always going to include it. So hopefully this lands in the right spot and everyone can agree and move forward. But there were also a lot of cards spoiled in the upcoming set, and Shamrock, the Goldfather, was one of those cards that people had heard about or had seen, but no one knew what a lucky coin was. And then once they saw the lucky coin, they're like, oh, this could actually be good. So Shamrock the Goldfather says, when an opposing champion plays a non-resource card, create a lucky coin and put it into your hand. A basic action is discard 3 coins, play the top card of your deck for free. So if your opponent is saying running Turbo PA, Turbo Psychic Ascension, you may have a hand like of 12 to 15 lucky coins at any given time.
Yeah, I think they changed the text on this card. I vaguely remember when it was initially spoiled that it said when you have 4 cards of the same name.
Maybe jumping to Timothy the Turtle. Yeah,
Timothy. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a 3 cost 4/4. that alone is worth playing. I think some of the criticism is that it's unique, so people are worried about including like 4 copies of this in constructed. But for what it does, it's pretty solid, and it provides you a way to fix your resource space if you need to, pretty much the turn after you play it. So.
And it also allows you to open up and allows you to play some of the new champions that were mentioned, Lady Avalanche in particular. A lot of players were saying, why would I ever use Lady Avalanche as opposed to Balthazar and Puck? Well, there is no Balthazar and Puck anymore, just Balthazar. Side story later. But Lady Avalanche says target troop you control gets momentum 1. You can play an additional resource this turn, but people are like, well,
yeah.
When am I gonna have another resource in my hand? And
true.
And well,
after turn 3 or 4.
After turn 3 or turn 4, they're like, well, it actually can happen with Shamrock. It doesn't give you the charge. Lucky coin only fate weaves. I guess it's like a double-headed coin or a double-tailed coin.
Oh, it doesn't give you a charge. Another no charge card. Darn it.
It's a free resource. It's a free fate weave. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I'm growing so accustomed to being able to get my charges consistently that when I don't, I feel bad. but it's still super solid if you're going to get the Fate Weave effect. So
yeah. And it's still on top of it. It's still resource or card generation. You can ramp up. Some of the cards, any of those X cost cards that you see, or very very high value cards, or what the activated abilities, if you want to be able to trigger them more than once, Shamrock the Goldfather seems like an obvious choice. What else? Moving right along, we got Blaze of Glory, a quick action life drain, deal X damage to target troop. If it would die, void it this turn. You cannot hit the face, but it's still a very very solid card for Diamond Ruby.
Yeah, it's basically like a Skarn Breath, but it's in Diamond Ruby instead of double Ruby. And the life drain element of it's really nice. It reminds me of an MTG card, but that MTG card could also hit face. I think it was called Lightning Helix or something. But I do like the direction they're going with this. It's cool to be able to kill something and then also get life drain from it. So. I think this will be really powerful to play in any deck that's running Diamond Ruby. Yeah.
Also, is Skarn Breath, is it a quick action or is it just a basic?
It's basic, so that is different. So that's very powerful to note, the quick action, which makes it even more playable as a end of opponent's turn ability.
Or some sort of combat trick. If they're trying to pump it up after you block, you can Blaze of Glory before, do all of those crazy shenanigans and get a good 2-for-1 in there. Crafty Sky Carver. This was a card that people saw and immediately thought, okay, Turbo PA or any expensive action, I am definitely gonna try and get into my crypt, and then hopefully it gets into it as a mysterious rune. Cards that people thought of off the top of their head was, Psychic Extension, obviously, and also Absolute Power, being able to draw any number of cards that they wanted to, just because Absolute Power was in their crypt.
Does that work that way, though? Because that's an X cost card, right? Will it allow you to choose what X is when it... Oh, wait, no, Absolute Power is not X, right? It just allows you to draw X. So.
Exactly. So Absolute Powers, its cost is 8, but it says draw any number of cards.
Interesting. Yeah, so I guess I wasn't involved in any of that discussion, but that's a really unique way to toy around with this card, is to, find a way to get something into the crypt that will be very impactful. Yeah. And then being able to play it for free.
Yeah, so I think I was experimenting with some decks, and cards like Theorize and the troop that was draw a card, discard a card. On turn Sparrow. 2, going into a Crafty Sky Carver worked out extremely well. And then with Theorize or any Heart's Whisper, you should be able to guarantee a resource the following turn. And trigger that mysterious rune.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to playing around with that myself, and there are a ton of fun ways you can combo with actions that way.
All right, moving right along, we have Timothy the Turtle, a card that you alluded to earlier, and like I, I I don't know what to think about Timothy, but just because I don't think it's I don't think it's tier one. I think it's just an absolute silly fun card
Yeah, it's a
to
Johnny
have.
card.
Right? Like it's just an absolutely fun card, and if you get it to work, then in limited, but I don't think it's going to see any sort of play in constructed.
Yeah, I mean it may. There's some funky things you can do with it, but I think a lot of the cards that I'm thinking about are rotating out of standard. So, like Star Caller Ancient or Start, I think that's the name of it, where if your card is prophesied when you draw it, create a copy of it and put it into your hand. There are other cards from this set, like the gold member guy that we were just
Hmm.
looking at,
Hmm.
that create cards that have the same name.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
so
well, Timothy does say
there are resources. Yeah,
non-resource, right?
they are resources.
All right. So
True.
I needed to ask you this though. What happens if you're trying to run like a tri shard and you do like Moonrise Elder and have 4 Valors in your hand?
Oh, Valor. Valor is a good way to do it.
Right?
Yeah,
Like you play a Moonrise Elder, so you get, 4 Valors, and then you like drop your 4 Valors and you get 4 random legendary troops.
Valor is a great way to do it. There's also what's the other cards that you can mass play, like Dreadlings. Like, what if you played a Titanospore and you have 7 Dreadlings in your hand? That's an easy way to do it.
That is another way to do it. So, and Dreadlings are within hero fall blocks.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Timothy, I don't quite understand his flavor text. Timothy likes the kind of royalty Timothy prefers is flush, but shouldn't he really like 4 of a kind based on his game text? Like, why would he like royal flushes? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess he'll settle for a 4 of a kind. So yeah, that Titanospore combo actually sounds pretty amazing, because all it would take is one more card to get that fourth Dreadling back to your hand for a second 4 legendary troops. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to pull that off now.
Oh, and then you have the monk, the green,
Yeah,
the
Monk of the
sapphire.
Six Tails or
Yeah,
something. Or
right. So you can grab those dreadlings back because it's a 1 cost card.
yeah,
I don't know. Like, if someone can actually make it work and make it tier one, that would be absolutely hilarious.
all right. Titanospore is going up in value. Everyone, you heard it here first. Stock up.
All right, moving right along to we have Emperor Nox, the Scorpion Hydra. It is unique, but it has perhaps one of the scariest effects that I've seen on a printed card. When a troop you control attacks, double that troop's attack.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be really, really good, and that's permanent attack buff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just think about like pairing something like that with like, okay, I'm not, I'm going back to Immortal here, but like something with Gore Feast,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Or
all of a sudden,
you could
the
do
attack's doubled.
Zoltog with gladiators, and
Yeah, there you go.
yeah,
Zoltag works.
yeah. So attack twice, and you give the guys first strike and crush, and you pretty much instant win on turn 6.
And of course, it fits very well with Sting of the Scorpionox. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that's fun to play with it. And it's when the troop attacks. So Sting of the Scorpionox, the blocks would trigger after the attack is buffed permanently. So they would not be able to block if the attack exceeds the enemy's opposing attack values. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this is played. I mean, it doesn't have it has an immediate effect for other things on the board the turn you play it, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't for itself. So I could see something like maybe a combo deck running the 2 Blaze Elementals that goes for a big drop play on 6, and utilizes the blaze elementals to maybe sneak in, up to 12 damage or more.
Yeah, they become 6/1s that can't be blocked
Well,
by.
if you have a Scorponok and Sting of the Scorponok in play before, they would become either, I think, so their attack would be 4 with Sting, but I don't think the Sting's buff is part of their attack, so they would hit for 14 total, seven each.
Well, yeah. So how would that work? Do you it's a 3/1? It goes to 4. Then do you double it and then add 1 again, or?
I think I want to say that the attack buff is not linked to the card. So if they attack, I think it would still be a 6/1, and then it would get the +1 from Sting. But I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, so we're not sure. What we're talking about here is if it's 3 + 1 and then, or 3 × 2 + 1, or 4 × 2 then +1.
Yeah, we'd have to test that to figure it out. I'm not quite sure on the rolling around the constant attack value buff.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where we're kind of happy that there's a math engine built into Hex, so we don't have to worry about whether or not we're doing the math correctly. The number is just printed right there. You're like, oh, okay, that's what the number is. All right, moving right along, we have the Arca Novex. It's a 3-drop 1/4, and I like. I guess I can speak into this. I saw a lot of cards that has a deploy that's tied to the toughness of a Frostform troop. So this is not going to be the only one you see here, where the deploy is create a random action with cost equal to this troop's cost that you meet the threshold requirements to play. So you are either going to get, if you play it as a 3-drop, you're going to get a 4-cost action, or if you play or you Frostform it, you're going to get a 1-cost action.
Wait, it's equal to its cost, not its defense, right?
Oh, so I've seen.
So it's either you'll either get a
defense,
1
and 3
or a 3, yeah.
So,
but no, that's still really neat. I mean, there's a lot of great 3-drop actions that. Well, I don't know if they're all going to be in limited rotation, but it'll be fun to see, especially if you're playing in a secondary color that really has a bomb action that's in that cost. But having a solid 1-drop frost form is also great. And then being able to revert it or bounce it and get additional actions will be fun to play with too. For example, you can get Evaporate for 1 and then evaporate it and replay it.
All right, moving right along. We're just going over a couple of spoilers, and Light 'em Up. Light 'em Up is actually a card I actually really like. So Light 'em Up, it's a basic action, Illuminate 1. When a card you control deals non-combat damage to an opposing champion, if this is in your crypt, put this into your hand.
Nice. And is this the one that you said you're testing with?
I have built a deck around this.
Yeah.
And let's just, well, I can explain the combo now just because it's out there. Arena Regular and Arcane Alloc.
Oh, so you gain the charge and you play it, and then it comes back to your hand. Yeah. Or the second one comes back to your hand, right?
Yep. So, and I think I actually Mind Collared one of them. So
nice.
So it was play 1 for free. And so it's 0 cost, get the 1 cost 1, play the 1 cost 1, get the 0 cost 1. And like it was on turn, I think 4. So I illuminated 8 times, dealt 8 damage off of 1 Arena Regular, and had 4. Actually, it was more than 4 4/4s. It was 6 4/4s at that time.
Is Mind Call set 5 or is it going out of rotation? I can't recall.
I think Mind Call did it get reprint? I'm pretty sure it's set 5.
Set 5. Okay, so it's still in standard block.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that sounds like a pretty disgusting combo that you can still do. Yeah, that'll be fun to play with, and then you also have access to that new Gobbler that I didn't include in the slides, but that Gobbler is pretty nice too. The one that has a cost reduction for every action you play. Did you see that one?
I did not see that one. I will say it light 'em up, and the arena regular also works very well with the new take an additional turn.
Ah, okay.
Right. So the Heartsworn, I think it was 6 cost. Take an additional turn after this one until the start of your opponent's turn. Whenever you play an action, gain 2 charges.
Ah, okay.
So the arena regular was actually in one of my testing was actually dealing. I think Swamp Butt had 16 charges at the end of the turn. At the end of turn like 4, it was like there was no,
Wow.
you just kept on activating his ability, and if you happen to draw Swamp, gas, you just immediately just drew into more cards, got more light 'em up, and you won that way.
Awesome. That sounds like fun to play. Yeah, anything that makes Swamp Butt more playable, I'm all for.
Yeah, apparently candles like swamp gas and swamp butt. Yeah,
That makes sense.
it does. And I absolutely loved the flavor text on this. Candle can quickly wax the floor with unwary opponents.
It's like a little pig skull on the floor too. That's
Yeah.
good.
All right, so moving right along, for all of you guys who were concerned that High Infinitrix was rotating out, what are we going to do for a 4-drop flyer with good text? Well, Seamstress of Valinia, when you seek Adventure, the top card of your deck gets cost -1. When you seek Fortune, draw a card. So essentially, when you Fate Weave, you either Fate Weave it to be lower cost, or you immediately draw that resource.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, it's just I think the difficulty with the seamstress will be one, getting her to stick for her turn, and then two, if you do get her to stick, or do you still have Fate Weave cards left in your hand? So, and that's mainly because her cost is 4. If her cost was 3, and she was a 2/3, I would say that she's even better than a 4 for 4/3/4, just because you'd be able to play her a little bit early and make better use of any Fate Weave that are still left in your hand.
Yeah. What's it called? There is the Diamond Wild Troop that is when this attacks or blocks Fate Weave. So that could be the immediate use. Also, if it does stick, Guidance essentially becomes draw 2 cards. One of them is a resource, because you would always Fate Weave. You would always seek Fortune. So you would always immediately draw the resource, and then Guidance then draws you another card. Heart's Whisper becomes draw 3 cards, because you would always choose Seek Fortune, and then you would draw 2 additional cards.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, she does provide immediate value at least the turn after if she stays in play. And there are many different things. Even the champion that has Fate Weave could be really great with the deck with her in it. So, and she's not unique, so you can play multiples, which wow, that can get into crazy town. Like, say you play her with Sorceress Sculptor.
So then all of a sudden, if you Fate Weave, if you Seek Fortune, you draw a resource and an additional card, because
and you can even put the Fate Weave gem on your Sorceress Sculptors to make copies of her, so it Fate Weaves when it's played. Anyway,
all right,
just thinking of crazy things.
Yeah, like there's always good ways to break the card. How it's going to actually be executed is part of the fun, and seeing if it actually rises to the top. All right, moving right along, we have the Jacked Colossus, which is a 3/7. Opposing troops must block this if able. When this becomes blocked, this gets Gladiator 2. So it already has high defense, so it's going to be difficult to kill. It's basically screaming to have lethal be placed on it.
It's like the new Crocosaur, and like in some ways, because so there's a lot of things going on with this card. Why I wanted to talk about it is that it gets permanent Gladiator 2, and when it becomes blocked, that is talking about a single block. So everything that blocks it is going to give it Gladiator 2. So it's pheromones on crack. You can just eat through your opposing troops board, or opposing opponent's board, basically anything they have on in play.
Mm-hmm.
And what would really make this shine, I think, is pairing it with speed. So if we played something like Haraza, which
Mm-hmm.
I think Haraza is going away, right? So Haraza, or was Haraza part of? No, I think Haraza is still part of set 5 and 6. So I think you could pair this with Haraza and get super value out of it, because then anything left on the board when you play it has to block.
Mm-hmm.
So you can play like a 4-drop major gem that gives you charges, and then on turn 5 you drop the banner and drop Jack Colossus, and it's basically a green extinction.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult to deal with, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be one of those things where quick actions and quick removal is gonna be that much more important. I think we can't stress it enough already.
Yeah, for sure.
Have quick removal. All right, moving right along. We're not going to cover all of the spoilers or all the cards that were released over the past 2 weeks, but we will hit up a couple more of our favorites. Take a look at the champions. And looking at the Nameless Devourer, a 2-drop 5/5 with Crush, but your opponent may bury the top 10 cards of their deck. If they do, destroy this.
I really like the card that's built right here. I think it might be a little too strong,
Mm-hmm.
because of the number of ways that you can just play Crypt Recursion and to replay this.
Mm-hmm.
It's either going to stick eventually or they're going to have no deck left. So if you're playing some sort of aggressive mill themed deck, like with Maggot Swarm and Nameless Devourer, I think mill might be tier 1 now.
Yeah, what's strange about the mill that I've seen, just because I get to play some of these cards and I'm trying to figure out like how good they are, is oftentimes when the same turn you mill is the same turn you also deal lethal damage.
Ah, I see.
Because of the way the deck works now, where the more you mill, like cards become cheaper and you can do certain things, and there's always that tension, and your opponent's always thinking, do I want to mill, or do I want to allow some other effect, like the Nameless Devourer? After the second one, you don't want it to stick anymore, so you're like, okay, I'm just gonna let it stick, and hopefully I don't get milled. And it's kind of like playing with a second health total or a life total that you didn't know that you needed to be worried about.
Yeah, it's just so effective because there's not a ton of removal in the 2 slot that'll deal with it. There is a few cards
Mm-hmm.
that can help you a lot, but I think a lot of the times people are going to be terrified to see it on 2 and will choose to lose 10 cards versus keeping it in play.
Yeah, what Diamond's Favor? If you have a Diamond's Favor, that will work.
That's a good one. The one that gives you a Valor
Vanquish.
Vanquish would work.
Vanquish
That's a 4 cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking at the low curve, I think Rockcast is going away, so we don't have Rockcast.
Mm-hmm.
Strangle is not effective enough.
Nope.
You need like Strangle plus Cheap Shot, which is 2 cards for 1.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just really effective for its cost and its attack, and also having Crush. So it's not something you can just chump block for a while and be okay with.
Yeah. All right, moving right along. A 2-drop 4/4 Dawn Charger, but when this attacks or blocks, you may put a constant you control into your hand. If you don't, put this into your hand. Not quite sure how I feel about this one. It's really going to depend on the number of constants that have deploy effects that don't have a negative effect for bouncing back into your hand. And when I say the negative bouncing effect, I'm talking about like the Decree of Banishing, the Blinding Ires. Those cards say when Frostlock, when this leave play, basically whatever it did when it came into play, it loses that effect. You're looking for something that has. Can you think of a deploy one?
Well, okay, hold that thought, because let's think of the positive side of this too. If you're combining it with a card like Vesper, where every time you play a constant, it grows. Mm-hmm. So there is a downside that you're mentioning, which is the cards that are voiding or banishing until the constant's removed, which is true. However, there is that upside of there are cards that get benefits every time you play a constant. So, what's the trade-off there? Like, are you going to bounce a Daybreak or a Nightfall, and is that the end of the world? Probably not. It's a one cost, so you can just easily replay it. But then, if you are combining it with cards like Decree of Banishing and Frostlock, then you could be in some trouble unless greater threats come on the table and you really need it back anyway. That can be another use case for playing this. There may be other cards that make better use of cards coming back from the void that would benefit you. But the downside of both Frostlock and Decree of Banishing is I think you're forced to target a card on the opposing side of the table. So you can't make use of any deploy effects on your own side of the table by continually bouncing the constant into your hand with Dawn Charger.
Yeah. The only upside that I could think of with Dawn Charger is if your opponent's attacking with a very large non-crush troop, once a turn, you have an infinite blocker because the Dawn Charger will run in, block it, and then be bounced back to your hand immediately before damage is dealt. So he's always going to be able to block, and you can kind of stall that out while you're trying to draw something.
Oh, that's a cool little synergy. The other thing I'm thinking of that could be really cool with this card, now that I've been thinking about it, is Illusory Form, I believe. The quick action constant that you can actually target one of your troops with, and then when it... Is it when it leaves play or when you sacrifice it? I can't remember. But it's supposed to bring a troop back into play when it leaves play. So I think that may be a combo. I need to look at Illusory Form again, but that could be a fun way to make better use of Dawn Charger on your own side of the field. Anyway, it's a 2-cost for it also, so it's pretty good.
All right, and finally, Hapai, the High Hero. He seems to be joining the Brozai Buck
Care
party.
for a smoke. His flavor text.
Yeah. But if for some reason, or if Barry does become a very, very popular archetype, Hapai, the High Hero, I think is going to see a lot of reserve play, just because Nameless Devourer all of a sudden turns into nothing, right? Like, I have the Hapai Hero, you play a Nameless Devourer, sure, I'll bury the top 10 cards of my deck. They immediately transform into something else in my deck, and when I play that card, I can draw another card. You should not be able to get milled if you have the Hapai High Hero.
Yeah, another funny thing I was just thinking of based on that text is, what if you do like a Waltz of the Dam, I think it is, where it takes all of the troops in play, puts them onto your side of the table, and then sacrifices them all. And then you get like all of your opponent's cards going into your deck as well. Just a funny way to get more cards. But yeah, it's an interesting card, and just being able to put cards back into your deck if you have a strong draw engine could be super effective. So we'll see how that plays out.
All right, and then finally, I'm surprising you with a slide because I know you gave me all the slides, but I think you forgot about this one.
Oh, okay. What is this? Sylvan Springs. When you play a troop, create a copy of it and put it into your deck, it gets +3/+3. Did I get to see this before, or is this a spoiler?
This is our spoiler. Dino sent it to us. I don't know.
Oh, did he send it to us? Maybe I didn't look at it.
Yeah, he did send it to us, and I was looking at this card, and I was just like with, and I don't know, like with the Japan release and Changeling Cuties and now Hot Springs, is this like the continuation of the fan service that we were talking about from from 2 weeks ago? But
no, you know what? I did actually take a quick look at this, so I like it. When you play a troop, you create a copy, and it gets +3/+3. It kind of reminds me of Pack Hunters a little bit. And I really like Pack Hunters. The fact that this is a constant and will happen every time you play a troop is quite crazy. I'm curious to see. So it's only when you play a troop, so it can't be troops that you create that are summoned.
No.
So like it won't work with Candlekin or anything, which is actually probably good because you can have way too many cards going into your deck. But yeah, just there's a lot of cards that are hinting at wanting to draw a ton more cards out of your deck. It's kind of going back into like the pack Raptor type of cards that we enjoyed early on in set 1 and set 2 that pumped up the number of cards in your own deck. Ancestors Chosen was another one of those. So I do enjoy those types of cards. It's just, can you find the draw engine to make it worthwhile?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's going to be a definite limited bomb, just because like it's
for sure.
It's just great value. It's going to be one of those cards where if you see this pack one, pick one, just like Pocket Army, you're going to grab it, hope it's in your opening hand, and then know that if you can get to turn 10, you're most likely going to win. Yeah, it's just going to be one of those just really strong cards in limited. If it's going to see constructed play, I'm not 100% sure what the meta is going to look like, to be honest. I don't know if control or if it's going to be pure aggro, pure rush. Definitely Sylvian Springs wants the game to go long. It wants to get very high value. Maybe play a troop again that has +3/+3, so the next time it comes around it has +6/+6 type of thing. Yeah, it's going to be really powerful.
Yeah, and there will be a lot of constant hate, I think, in constructed. So I don't think it'll see I don't think constant hate will see a lot of main deck play still. But because of the cards we're seeing, you're going to definitely have to answer constants in the constructed meta, especially with some of the cards we're losing.
Oh, so. Yeah. No, I think constant, with the amount of verdicts that I also saw, right? We saw a lot of strong verdict cards that were constant. I like the fact that Scouring Light is also diamond, so it's in the shard that is constant hate, makes me feel kind of strange. Like, you have this constant base deck that doesn't like, but it's in the same thresholds as that doesn't like constants, right? The Radiant Physician and Scouring Light is in the same threshold. I don't understand how that works.
Yeah, really the only constant removal we have is in both Wild and Diamond, and both Wild and Diamond have some of the strongest constants. So yeah, Scouring Light is a kind of a conundrum because of all the constants that Diamond does tend to play. But I think they make you make that decision when you're determining whether or not you sideboard that card in your deck. So.
All right, so moving right along, we go to the 5 new champions plus Balthazar. Balthazar he looks a little bit lonely right now. I had said that Puck and Balthazar may not make it back in the next set, and people were calling me a liar. And Puck and Balthazar are not making it back in the next set. If you guys haven't read the lore, please do so. And yeah, a lot of fun there. What's your take on all of the champions so far?
Well, I think my favorite is Lady Avalanche. I really like the ability to play the bonus resource. I think she's going to be fun in both limited and PvE. And she might see a little bit of play in PvP as well. People do like to play ramp. So it's nice to have a new ramp champion that actually is a ramp champion I think has more value than other ones we've seen in the past, and has a decent health total to go with it, as opposed to like Cressida and some of the other ones. Out of the other ones, I do also like Entity. I want to play around with portals. I think portal play will be fun. And I don't quite know what to think about the other 3 outside of Balthazar. And correct me if I'm wrong, is that Balthazar not a champion that's going to be in this set? It's just a alternative art, or?
Well, he has the Frostheart like icon as opposed to the Dead of Winter.
I see. Okay.
So story-wise, Balthazar is replacing Puck and Balthazar as the champion.
Oh, that's right. Okay, okay. For some reason, I glossed over that when I was adding him to this list here. That makes perfect sense, and that's also why I got to share final performance the same day that Balthazar the Elegist and that story and lore behind it were released. So it all makes perfect sense. So that's interesting. So they just changed the previous champion based on the story that's changing for Dead of Winter. So that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I still don't quite know what to make of Verdict. I really am not convinced it's going to be strong because I think your opponent has a lot of control on whether or not you're getting good value from it. So, but it's still RNG. So my verdict is still out on whether or not Verdict is good. So.
Like I'll tell you this right now, like just in the flipping of the coins, it's painful sometimes. Sometimes the choices are like all your opponent's troops get +1/+1, or all my troops get -1/-1, and you're sitting there like, yeah. I lose 2 troops, or I give him essentially +6/+6.
So let me ask you this again, because I think last time we talked about it, I wasn't 100% clear. And even when I read it, I'm still not 100% clear. When the opposing player is asked to choose a verdict, do they see what the 2 verdicts are for the positive and negative and have to pick between those 2?
Yes. So it's going to randomly choose a positive, a day and a night one, or a positive and a negative. So it's kind of like the easy ones are going to be like, your opponent gets a daybreak, or your opponent gets a nightfall. You're like, oh, okay, my opponent can get a daybreak, whatever. Like,
do they always match up like that too?
They don't always match up. So sometimes it's like your opponent gets a daybreak, or you discard a card at random.
Will they say something like your opponent gets +1/+1 when they have no troops in play?
No, that option won't be there, and it will not show your troops get -1/-1 unless you have a troop.
Got it. So you can kind of control the verdicts that you get too based on when you verdict, depending on the board state and whatnot, to an extent.
Yeah. So I guess if you like verdict and there's nothing on the board, then you're going to be getting either the draw a card, discard a card, or daybreak nightfall.
Nice. Okay.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, I think things get out of hand very, very quickly with Verdict, and when I was playing against the computer, I'd be like, oh yeah, whatever, verdict. After the 4th or 5th verdict, I'm like, please make it stop. This hurts. This hurts. Like if you do not respect the verdict will hurt you very quickly.
Oh, I believe it. Oh, that's cool. Okay. And I'm a little bit more of a fan of Verdict now that I understand it a little bit better. And I think that 10 drop or the 10 cost charge power will be interesting to play with too. Create a copy of target troop you control and put it into your hand. When you play a necrotic, gain a charge. I think it could be fun, but it's really going to be more fun for constructed in my mind. Just not knowing how many necrotic are being released between the 2 sets. So.
Well, with the Heartsworn, I mean, that's what Frostshaper Gorkrog should really be, right? It's the Sapphire Heartsworn, so you're going to see a lot of troops that... I wouldn't be surprised if you saw more troops that uses charges as an activated ability. Like if the Heartsworn... Like, we already seen Lixil Heartsworn. She uses charges. I would not be surprised if there were more troops that were like that. They see, and especially with another champion that says when you play a necrotic, gain a charge. It seems to be the Heartsworn, storyline.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of people, like, after Lixil was spoiled, trying to buy up Eternal Bastions because that permanently reduces the charge cost of things. So be interesting to see what kind of decks stem from charges on troops and how that works.
Yep. All right. Moving right along, we're reaching the almost the end of our show. Hex Primal has introduced Fight Night, essentially a rock league, only costing 3,000 gold. I think I went 2-1 in my first Hex Primal Fight Night. A very I wouldn't say very fun entry level tournament right now, especially with Yoltul and McBombus still running around. I think once those cards rotate out, I think the rock format might be a little bit more new user friendly for some of the PS4 players who are, just trying to experiment.
Yeah, I think it's great for some of the newer players, especially PS4, just giving them a level playing field to test out their decks. I've heard that there are still a lot of issues with some of the PS4 features in the client, so hopefully that those get all ironed out and more PS4 players are joining. I've been able to play in 2 fight nights now, and I went 3-0 the first time and 2-1 the second time. Just had fun playing. I like playing the format because it's not as legendary reliant, so it comes more down to your decisions with commons and uncommons, and you feel like it's a little bit more fair. But I played McBombus, so I feel like maybe I was cheating a little bit, but it will be interesting to see how the decks change when some of these cards and champions rotate out.
Yep. All right. And then finally, for those of you guys who are watching or listening to this podcast, I'm like, what is Frost Ring Arena? If you're coming from the PS4 side, this is something that's in Hex Shards of Fate, not Hex Card Clash, unfortunately. But Nico has a brand new brew for you to try out using One Eye Open and Prepare for War.
Yeah, it's really fun, and it's also using Zip Zapper, which escalates your escalate cards. So sometimes you can get a Zip Zapper or 2 in early and make the next light of votives you play like a 5 escalate already. So you're going to get 5 Candlekin in play, and Prepare for War is basically multiplicative. So if you play Prepare for War with 5 troops in play, all of those troops are going to become 6/6 or greater if they are 1/1s to start with. And then you can ready them all immediately with One Eye Open and then attack. So it's a pretty fun deck. It has a lot of little bits of card draw in it. Cosmic Flash Paw is pretty awesome. I don't know if any of you guys have hit them, but if you can get them, pick them up. Fun card to play around with. And then we're using Lady Cassandra, which is a Kickstarter exclusive PvE card to help us with our threshold fixing early to make it easier to do things like Consult the Talon and Cosmic Calling to draw more cards. We're also running Fate Weave on the Warp Steel Shard Sworns to make it easier to hit our shard base.
All right, so just as a note, this is not budget by any means with 3 Lady Cassandras.
No, sorry, not budget.
Yeah, the equipments are already kind of scary as well, so not budget, but should be a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, definitely. So check it out if you have the cards.
All right, well, I guess for all of us here at Cornerstone, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you guys no, you're good.
I went off screen.
No, I realized, he's leaning back too much. Well, from all of us here, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And, well, hopefully the next time we talk or meet, we'll have already been playing Dead of Winter.
I hope so. Yeah, hopefully release is coming soon. See you guys soon.